I own literally hundreds of Lego sets, but something I don't do nearly often enough is designing my own Lego creations. So today, what I'm going to do is take free custom builds that I've made and try and improve them using a digital design tool, because there's no limitations on the bricks that way. It can get quite expensive to build with Lego. These free sets are all things I've made in the past, and now I'm going to try and improve upon them. So let's get right into the first one. So this right here is a set that I made about a year ago, maybe a year and a half. It's supposed to be a Lego Minecraft set. Basically, the way this came about was I bought a big box of Lego online from eBay because I just saw this like random pile of bricks someone was selling, and there was a couple of good minifigures in it, and it was really cheap, so I thought, sure, I'll get that. But it came with a lot of the Lego Minecraft parts, and I'm not massively into Lego Minecraft, which is surprising because I'm really into Lego and I'm really into Minecraft. So I used those bricks to try and build my own Minecraft set, just making it up as I went along. And in the bundle of bricks I got, there was a 16 by 16 base plate, and that base plate is what gave me the idea for this set, because a chunk in Minecraft is 16 blocks by 16 blocks. So I thought, I'll do like sort of a cross section of a chunk showing the surface level and the caves below. And that's basically what this is. We've got the bottom cave with some lava and stuff. There's a figure at the back mining some stuff and a little chest down there. On the second level, we have a zombie walking around in this cave. There's a bit of a minecart track here. I'm not sure what the best angle. There we go. There's a minecart track here going through what's meant to be a nether portal, but it looks a bit rubbish. And there's also a little trap here. So there's a door, and if you pull this bit out, it falls down. So you can, drop someone down with that. It's got a little trap in it. And then up on the surface level, there's a bit of water around, just sort of a beach area. And we've got a minifigure here cutting down a tree. And this doesn't work very well, but it was supposed to be a mechanism, so when you turn this little bit at the side, it makes it look like he's turning and swinging the axe at the tree. So this probably took me about 2 hours to build, using the parts that I had. But now, I'm going to recreate it with unlimited parts, and we're going to see how well I can do this. So to start off this build, I've put in the base plate. This is a 16 by 16 base plate, like the one that I used for the original build. Now, technically, this should be 32 by 32 to be an actual Minecraft chunk, because one Minecraft block is usually represented by a 2 by 2 Lego brick, so technically every 2 studs would be 1 block. However, 32 by 32 is a pretty big area. I think this square here works out to that, so it would be trying to build something that takes up this entire area. And something that's important to me about this build is that I want it to feel very towering. It should be taller than it is wide, and it's going to take a long time to build something that's taller than it is wide on that big an area. So I'm going to stick to the 16 by 16 base plate to sort of represent a Minecraft chunk without building it exactly to scale. Also, I do kind of want it to be taller than the original. I'm not entirely sure how tall, because I want it to be within the height that it's still going to be stable and it's not going to be so tall that it starts wobbling and falls over. But I probably want at least 4 levels to it, whereas the original only had 3. But let's just get designing and see how it goes. To begin with, I started using some large dark grey pieces to build out an initial layer for the bottom of the cave. This was a bit of a slow process as I was adjusting to the software as I was going, learning how it worked. I've never used this before and it wasn't a very smooth process to begin with. After building out an initial base to start on, I started building up the walls of the first layer, making it slightly different to the original but still keeping the same sort of feel, with still the spacious cave vibe in there. After building up the shape of the first layer of the caves, I started adding in the lava. Much like the original, I wanted to have this pool of lava at the bottom layer to show that it was supposed to be the deeper part of the world, because that's where lava lakes are found in Minecraft. And I also wanted to have the lava dripping down like in the original, because it just feels like it adds an element of movement to it, even though nothing's actually moving. After I'd added more to the walls on this level to make them strong enough to hold up the rest of the build, I started working on the ceiling of this level, which would also serve as the floor for the next level. I also kept in the trapdoor above the lava like the original, which ended up being a little harder than I expected to try and get working. It's worth noting this could be a very over-engineered solution, but basically, under the trapdoor, there's a little slope on the underside of it, which presses against this ball thing here, which can be pulled away with this bar. I don't know if this slope's necessary. I was struggling to get this to the right level though, and this seems like the best option to me. Starting off the next floor, I added in a nether portal, which looks far better than the one in the original. After the nether portal, I then added in the minecart track, which also looked a lot more accurate to Minecraft than the one that was in my original build. After putting in the minecart track, I continued building up the cave around it, adding in ores and different types of stone. I thought I was recording this bit, but apparently not. I then followed that up by adding in a little minecart. Next I moved into the next layer of the cave, now fully using the lighter grey rather than the dark grey, as we transition from the deep slate layer into the stone layer. This next floor was going to be a sort of base area, completely original and not anything from the previous model. After the walls of this level were constructed, I added in a Minecrafty bed to start transforming this into a functional living space. After the bed, I put in some other base essentials like a chest, crafting table, and of course, a cake. I then spread around some torches to make the caves a little bit safer. Next, I finished up with building the walls on this layer and made sure to mix in lots of different types of ores to make it seem like it's really in a cave in Minecraft. After finishing off the roof of the third cave layer, I got a bit carried away with myself. I was having so much fun with this build that although I planned on stopping after 3 layers and then doing the ground level, I decided to add in one more cave layer. This time featuring a monster room, a structure that's fairly common in Minecraft and always found underground coming off of a cave. After building up the actual monster room itself, I added a zombie spawner inside it, as well as a chest, because that's what you would find inside one of these rooms in the game. I then built up some more sort of cave-like stuff around it to make it seem more like it is in an actual Minecraft cave. Finally, after building 4 layers of caves, it was time to make a start on the surface. Which should be the most basic level, right? Wrong. Because I had set myself the additional challenge of trying to incorporate in that little mechanism that I had in the original, the tree chopping thing. And it proved to be quite a challenge, first of all just to fit into the build, and secondly to get functional. It was hard to tell whether or not the mechanism would actually function smoothly because, well, I don't actually have it in front of me. This is just a digital rendering, it can't actually move, so I'll just have to hope that it is correct. After the tree chopping mechanism had been constructed and encased in bricks, I continued building the surface level, adding more of a hill around it to make it seem more natural. I left the underside of this hill more or less empty. I don't know why, but I just felt like leaving a little space here. I didn't end up doing anything with this space. I did have a plan for it, but then ended up not actually doing that, so it's kind of pointless. But all the same, it's there. After the ground on the surface layer was done, I then had to move on to the water, which I made by layering blue plates with transparent blue tiles to give it a sort of semi-transparent look, as if you can see through the water but just can't see anything below the surface. After construction on the actual build was finished, I just added in a couple of finishing touches like minifigures, and it was done. So now that the build is finished, let me talk you through every detail. So here we have Steve with a creeper walking up on him. He's chopping down what's meant to be a tree. This tile here would probably have to be printed to show the log to represent that this is clearly a tree. Just got, you know, a little beach area, some water, just to show that this is clearly the surface and, you know, show off all the different parts of it, I guess. Moving down a layer, we have the mob spawner, little torch in the wall here. I feel like this is how mob spawners generally are found. Like, there's usually a part of them that's broken and you can see through into it. And looking around the back, you can see there's a chest in here. I've made this spawner the same way that Lego does them pretty much, except without the mechanical parts, because I couldn't be bothered doing that, if I'm being perfectly honest. And here is just a zombie figure. He's just standing there chilling. Also, I do want to call out, I did manage to incorporate the mechanism into this, where Steve can sort of rotate here to hit the tree. He should have an axe, but the axe piece doesn't exist in this software, so I just used a sword to represent where the axe would be, you know. And moving down to the next layer, we have the little sort of underground hidden base, where there's a chest, a bed, a crafting table and furnace over there, a little cake in a little space here because cake. And I decided to give Alex the new copper equipment. So Alex is just down here, you know, getting geared up in the base with the brand new copper chestplate and copper sword, because those don't exist in Lego Minecraft yet because they've just been added to the game. So I thought, you know, that would be a fun inclusion to make this stand out a bit. Moving down to the next level, this might be the bit that I'm most proud of. I really like this part of the design, where we've got the skeleton here sneaking up on another Steve. This would probably be a different figure, but there's limitations to what's in the software, so I just put another Steve here as a sort of placeholder to show where another figure would go. The skeleton doesn't have a bow, because that's another piece that's not in the software, annoyingly. I've got some pillars here to sort of like represent, you know, like a mine shaft, along with the actual minecart on the rail, which is going through into the nether portal. And as you may have noticed, Steve is standing on the trap, which can be activated by pulling out this bit here, which will make the door fall. Also, something that you can see quite well, especially on this level, is I've tried to show the difference between the stone and then like the deep slate. So we've got darker grey down at the bottom layers and lighter grey moving up. So moving down onto the final and bottom layer, this is just supposed to represent a barrel. I put a slime in here because I felt like something had to be on the bottom layer, and I just thought, you know, slimes, why not? And you can see here the bottom half of the trap, so this would retract and make the door fall, plunging whatever figure's on top of it into the lava. All in all, I'm really happy with how this came out. I think it definitely has the same sort of concept as the original, but shows how it can be done far better when you have unlimited bricks at your disposal. Also, the colours on this do look a bit off, but I think if I render it, it might look slightly better. Okay, so I've just put it into rendering mode, and you know what, the colours look a little better now, but it is really dark. I think there must be a way that I'm supposed to add a light or something. Okay, I've somehow added in lighting, but it doesn't exactly look very good. I think I've figured out the best setting for this. I'm not quite sure. I don't really know what most of these do. This isn't my area of expertise. Like I said though, all in all, I'm really happy with this set. I'd probably buy it if this was an actual set. And, you know, it's not that big, so it would probably only cost me 1 kidney. When I started this, I thought I'd probably be able to knock out all 3 of these in an afternoon. That didn't go to plan. It's now the next day. It took quite a few hours to design that set. It was mainly because I had to get used to the software, but hopefully this next one should go faster. So up next we have a set that I built maybe about 3-ish years ago. And this next one is based off of Lego Ninjago. More specifically, the best season of Lego Ninjago, Tournament of Elements. So basically, I was at this like charity sale thing a while back, and there were these like boxes, like those boxes that you get sweets in from like Costco or whatever, like the big square boxes of Haribo's, you know. And there were quite a few of those boxes just full of random Lego parts. So I bought all of them, and I used quite a few of the parts from those to build this, which is an absolute abomination. It's quite frankly terrible. It's supposed to be the main sort of hall from Tournament of Elements. So you can kind of see in like the colors how you got like the red and the white and stuff, roughly where the idea came from. We've got Master Chen on his throne in the middle, with one of the Anacondri swords on the wall. So basically, what I want to do with redesigning this set is, well, first of all, make it the right shape. This is a big rectangle. The room in the show that this was based on is an octagon, which not the most easy shape to work with. Beyond that, I want to kind of integrate the hallway where Chen has all his sort of trophies, I guess, because that was something I wanted to do with the original, which you can see how I put the Anacondri sword on the wall. That's kind of where I was coming from with that, because I know that that stuff's not in the main hall in the show, but I want to have that sort of put into it. So like Zane's pink suit, that sword, maybe the painting or something. I can't remember what else is in that hall. I'll need to look it up. I want to have this set up like the sort of first challenge from Tournament of Elements, because the Jade Blades were such an iconic part of that season. So I want to make sure that they're, you know, scattered around the place, you know, hidden and whatnot. And obviously it makes the most sense to do that like the first challenge, where all the characters had to go around and hunt for them. And other than that, I think the other sort of main idea that I have for this is the figures won't be any of the ninjas. They've came in a million sets. I think there's literally around 230 sets that have a figure of Kai in them, so definitely not him. There's so many Elemental Masters in Season 4, most of them have only ever come in one set, so I think it would be a good idea to put them in this set that I'm designing. Not all of them, just a few of the ones that are hard to get nowadays. And the final thing I have to say about this before starting the design process is that I will be taking a bit of inspiration, mainly from, you know, some of the sets that have come out more recently, like the Tournament of Elements set from Ninjago Legacy, because I feel like the sort of brick usage in that gives a good representation of how that building was in the show. So that's about all I have to say about this. Let's jump into the design process. So looking at how to make the room octagonal, there's basically two main sort of elements of structure to go off of. There is octagonal plates. They're not that big though. So I think to make a bigger octagonal area, I'm going to have to incorporate these hinges and have them at the angle to achieve the shape.
2,000 years later.
That first attempt did not go so well. And now I'm just gonna, you know, restart it and hopefully improve upon the last one.
1 eternity later.
After a long time of trying out different things using hinges and angled pieces and octagons, and even trying to make the floor into 8 trapeziums and then attach those at the middle using clips, I finally found something that worked. And it turns out I was really overcomplicating the whole thing. All I needed was big plates, some rectangles and some triangles, and just put them together in an octagon shape. This actually turned out to be pretty okay. So now that the floor's done, I've made this bit red for the throne to sit on and added a bit of a sort of red carpet leading up to it. I used the instructions from the Ultra Stealth Raider to get some inspiration on how to construct the throne, but then I added some changes like more teeth on the back, snakes at the top, and of course all of Chen's buttons. So I'd planned on building the walls in a similar style to this set, which required one specific piece, this frame that's split into 3 sections with one pane behind it. So I went to the instructions to get the part number, blah 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 blah, looked it up, and this part is not in the software I'm using. so I can't use this specific frame, which means I guess I'm just going to have to settle with one of these. Actually, saying one of these isn't exactly accurate. There's going to be a lot of them. So to start off with, I put together one wall for the bottom floor. And as you can see, I've sort of incorporated into it the first of my sort of items that are going to be displayed in this room, which is Zane's pink suit. Now for some reason, another part that's missing from this software is the original Ninjago hood. So I used the ZX suit version of the hood instead, because I tried a few different ones out and personally I think it looks the best out of the ones that were available. I'm quite happy with how this little display case looks, and I'm liking the sort of design of the walls that I've got for the bottom floor. Basically all I've done here is have the figure with a transparent head and then put two of these frames, one at the front and one at the back, and then just case it in with bricks at the side. Pretty simple. Also, I've put a little gold tile at the bottom here to look like some sort of plate that would say what's in the case. After copying this wall structure across to the other two easy walls, it was time for the difficult part, trying to figure out the diagonal walls. This was quite a complicated process, or at least I made it a complicated process. I spent a lot of time trying out different things, experimenting with it, trying to figure out the best way of getting these walls to work, and I did eventually come to something that would work, but in the process there was a lot of trial and error and pretty stupid attempts. After spending a lot of time trying to figure out the diagonals, I realised that all I needed to do was put a 2x2 jumper plate here, have a 1x2 on top of it so it goes in the hole, and then everything's built on top of that 1x2. That does seem like a bit of an unstable structure, but theoretically it should be okay. I can make it slightly stronger by putting flat tiles under here so it's sitting on them, and then also the top of this will just be done with flat tiles, so the next layer will just sit on top of it and then it's pushing it down, so it should stay in place, hopefully. I'll admit that this is not the most elegant solution, however, I feel like I've seen Lego do worse, so it's good enough for me. Next I used red and gold bricks to break up the walls a bit and add in some colour. Then I began adding the next floor, which wasn't great. The diagonal sections were held in place by bar connections. I'm not sure why I did this, it seemed like a good idea. And the balconies were held up by pillars, which, to be fair, fairly structurally sound and does look cool. I used purple katanas in place of the Anacondrae swords because that piece was also unavailable. I finished off the floor of the second level and added a gold railing around the edges. Then I got to work on the walls of the second floor, which more or less resembled the same sort of style to the first floor's walls. Once the second floor walls were done, I made a small couch and added a not so hidden jade blade on top of it, using the wrong piece because, you guessed it, the right one was not available. Now I've gotten to the point where I'm adding in the minifigures, and I feel like I want to do something special for Griffin Turner to make it seem like he's actually running up to grab this blade. So I'm going to have a go at something and just see how it goes. I'd seen this sort of thing being done for the Flash before to make it look like he's going really fast. So I thought, what if I do that, but make it transparent bricks so that it isn't as high profile, to add the sort of elemental trail behind Griffin Turner that he has in the show when he's using his speed. So that's exactly what I did. I've used these transparent plates of varying lengths, so it's sort of uneven at the back, and then put a red one in for the level where his belt would be. And honestly, I think that looks pretty good. It does give off quite well the effect that he's gone really fast and he's like left this trail behind him. I prefer this to using the solid ones, having the transparent bricks, because it's a bit more subtle. I feel like the solid ones are just too much. I was fully expecting this build to be a bit faster than the last one. I thought it seemed simpler. No. Building octagons isn't easy, and between that, plus the amount of detail I've put into this, all the little ornaments and... ornaments? I feel like that's a weird word to use, but I'm sticking with it. Between the ornaments and the figures, this was a complex build, but it is done, even if it did take me over a day. And here is the finished build. Honestly, although this took me way longer than I expected it to, I think it was worth it. I'm really happy with how this turned out. I went a bit overboard with the minifigures on it. I think there's about 12 technically, but let me talk you through all the details. So, starting on the upper floor with one of my favourite little bits of this entire build, Griffin Turner running up to get this Jade Blade off that statue there. I love the effect that I've done with the speed here to make him look like he's running really fast. Really happy with how that turned out. Speaking of transparent stuff, if we move over here, another figure that I've put in this, which I made this one a bit different because I wanted to try and, create some variations of some of these. So this is Mr. Pale or Invisible or whatever his actual name is at this point. I can't keep track. I swear it's been like 3 different things. But the guy who's the master of invisibility, I've made him out of transparent bricks. That way it looks like, he's turned invisible, but you can still see that it's him from the hat and obviously the printing on it. So he's invisible to sneak up and take this Jade Blade. Moving across to the other side, we have Tox, the original one, because she's never actually come in any official Ninjago set, at least not in this form. There's the new one from Dragon's Rising, which I really don't like. It's not the same. This original version, would be really cool to get that in a set. She's just kind of standing there, already got a Jade Blade, probably from behind this thing here, about to take it downstairs. I'm not quite sure what this is meant to be. Some sort of altar or unit or something, I don't know. I just put it there. It's got a thing on it, some sort of bit of paper or something, and a little candle, and drawers in it, I guess. Over here, we have one of the things from Chen's collection that I mentioned before. I wanted to put some things in. This is supposed to be Captain Soto's peg leg, because I'm pretty sure Chen says that he has that in the series. And right next to it, we can see one of the Anachondri cultists just giving Jade Blade to Skylar, obviously referencing the fact that she was secretly Chen's daughter, and, she couldn't really lose in the tournament. It was kind of rigged. So she's literally being handed the blades while the rest of them are hunting for them. Nothing's really changed about this display with Zane's suit in it. I just wanted to call it out again because I really like it. Obviously, we've got the purple swords on the wall representing where the Anachondri swords would go, because I couldn't use the actual Anachondri swords. And here we have Neuro, the Master of the Mind, who has clearly just, found a Jade Blade, and Karloff trying to steal it from him, even though there's another one on the ground back there, because Karloff's stupid. And like how I put Mr. Pale in his sort of transparent version, I've got Karloff fully metallic for like when he turns into metal, because the original Karloff figure was just him, and I thought, to change it up a bit rather than just putting the same figure in another set, make it his metal form. Over at this side, we have Sensei Garmadon fighting Klaus to stop him from interfering with the tournament. I've used these sort of transparent purple flame pieces to look like Klaus's magic, and then just given Garmadon a sword that he can be swinging at him. And they're fighting in front of this structure here, which is meant to be the board that has like the bracket on it, showing who's fighting who in the tournament. Just thought it'd be cool to include that. And of course, we have Chen on his throne with his buttons, and Kabuki Nia standing next to him. And this, which I'm still not entirely sure how happy I am with this, this is supposed to represent the sort of statue thing that Chen had in the middle of the room for everyone to put the Jade Blades on once they'd found one. As you can see, there's already 4 in it. I don't know who those were. There's a lot of people in the tournament. Could have been anyone, really. But yeah, that's pretty much all the important details of this build. I've not really got any, I guess, functional elements to it, like the trapdoor and the tree chopping thing in the last one. I guess this is not as good in that sense. I did consider trying to have a trapdoor or something in this, but then I thought, well, I just put that in the last one, and also it would be a bit more difficult to build into this. But despite the fact that it is lacking sort of movement to it, I do think this is a really cool build. I'm quite happy with how it turned out. It's definitely far better than the one that I built before, and I think it's safe to say I will never be building diagonals again, especially not in an octagon thing. Finally, we have come to the third and final build. And I'm going to be honest, this is a bit of a weird one. Because the previous two are things that LEGO's done before. We've got a Minecraft set and an Ninjago set. Those are recognisable themes. I don't even know what this one is. So it's kind of a modular build in 3 levels. But this is the original version of it. Which, I mean, it's a bit terrible, isn't it? I mean, for one thing, it's built out of like really old bricks. Like these are from the 70s, I think, for the most part, which is not great. But yeah, that's what I had the most of at the time. I built this during lockdown. It was probably early 2020, I think I did this. And basically, I was really bored because I think we all were at that time. So I used a bunch of my mum's old Lego actually, and because it just had a massive box of it sitting around, and I used the bricks to build this, which at the time was meant to be just sort of a lab, some sort of science research lab thing, but not like a serious one, like a fun one, like in the movies. And then I don't know. After I started building it, it sort of developed into somewhere between science lab and superhero thing because I've got this. I'm not sure well I can show this, but there's a sort of weapon rack thing here with Batman's utility belt, a batarang, and some knives and stuff on it. Which actually, I'll just take it out of the build, show it a bit better. I've just broke it. Brilliant. Here, that. So basically, yeah, there's like weapons in it and then utility belts. I'm quite happy with how this looks actually. But I built that and then just randomly stuck it in this build. And then it kind of transformed what this was meant to be from that point on into sort of my own original thing where it became this sort of science research facility that was also like a base for superheroes or something. And that's not entirely obvious in this first layer. Basically everything that we've got in it that I can sort of show is there's just sort of a crate of stuff over here with some sort of robot bird sitting on top of it. There's a sink here with just some benches or whatever, just stuff for storage. Some sort of experimental batteries or power cells, I guess, here. This is just sort of a workbench area as well. Some sort of map device here that was meant to be. This is supposed to be like a big screen, which then folds down to reveal a secret exit at the back here. And then this fenced off area here was supposed to be a teleporter, which sounds really stupid because it's literally just like a brick and 2 fences. I don't know. It's a really weird thing that I built, and it doesn't really mean a lot on its own. But as I said, this is sort of a 3-story modular build. So this is the next layer to it, which I built quite a while after. The interior of this level doesn't matter at all. There's some stuff going on in the middle. There's some sort of device down the bottom bit there that doesn't make sense. This must be some sort of like server or supercomputer or something. And there's a little TV area over here. This on the wall was some sort of computer device thing. I don't know, but that floor, I'd say, is the interior that I'll be keeping the least of. Everything from that will be getting changed because I have a slight plan for that. Not much, but a slight plan. And then finally we have the top floor, the weirdest of all, which, so this front bit was meant to be like some sort of big window that kind of like sloped in a bit, and it looks horrendous. The inside is basically split into 3 rooms. So in this main room, we have a space for sort of this small rocket ship thing here. There's sort of like a command center bit at the front. This is meant to be just like a big fancy chair. This over here is meant to be like a little prison cell for holding villains in. And then over this side was a room where there'd be something. I don't actually know. I never really finished this. And also I built like a big door at the back for that little vehicle inside it to come out of. This is I don't know why I built the door like this. It's really weird. I used those big like hinge pieces where it's like two 2x4 plates connected so they open. It's really weird, and basically the only part of this build that's going to be staying the same is the shape, at least for the first two floors. The top floor, the front bit, needs to change a lot, but the bottom two should remain fairly similar, but I need to completely change which bricks are being used, because if we get the whole thing here in one piece, it looks horrendous. It's just a mess of really old Lego bricks, and I don't know, the exterior was never much of my focus on this. It was more about the interior, and even then, I never fully worked the interior out. It's just a bit of a mess. It was a stupid ongoing project across several years. Because like I said, the first floor was built during lockdown, and then I think it was around the time that I got the Sanctum Sanctorum set that I realised I could turn this into like a multi-floor thing, put some jumper plates and flat tiles on the top of it and add a second floor. And then pretty much immediately after I added that one, I then added the top one. A lot has to be done to this to turn it into something that looks at all decent. So let's get started. Now the problem with this model is because it's like a sort of modular build, the different floors need to separate, and I think to show that in this software, I'm going to need to build two versions of it. One where it's all assembled and one where it's disassembled. And I'm just going to build them in the same bit, though, just side by side. This actually seems to line up pretty perfectly, that two of these side by side gives us 24 studs wide. Of course, the side isn't just the same as this, it needs to come in at the front. And then the front part comes in 4 studs and then goes forward by 6. So I think I'm best using these. So now that I've got the basic shape, I'm going to build another layer up on top of this, which will be the actual floor of the build. Alright, so now that I'm done wasting time building a base, which I did go a bit overboard with, I'm going to have to actually build the walls, and I have no plan for this whatsoever. I'm just going to have to wing it. Okay, so I've actually just ended up procrastinating further and surrounding some of this in smooth tiles, leaving areas where I might want to build something on the outside. Okay, now I really need to actually try and figure out how to build these walls. And you know what? I'm going to start with the easiest part of the walls. I'm going to figure out how to do the door, because I hate the doors on the original. They're just the only doors I could find. I kind of want like a double door, so I'm thinking I'm going to have to use like these kind of doors. I mean, those aren't terrible. Are those even the right height for a minifigure? No, they are not. That is far shorter than a minifigure. Why would the doors not just be the same height as a minifigure? That doesn't make sense. Now, this is what I'm talking about. That is a door and a half. This is brilliant. After a little bit of experimenting with different bricks and stuff, I think I've kind of got my colour palette figured out. Sort of like a grey base line, and then probably grey on the top as well, and then like the lighter grey building sort of a frame with pillars, and then just making the walls sand blue, and I've also used the sand blue for the doors. Plus, I put these little printed 1x1 circular tiles on the doors to be like the handles, and adding a little front step. Alright, so I've done quite a bit more work on it. I have to say I am really liking how the walls are looking. I've just sort of got a rough bit of the walls out, except for this back wall. This back wall has been pretty much, well, not done, because there's still 2 huge gaps in it, but yeah, I got a bit sidetracked and went a bit overboard with this. So there was literally just a block on the ground with a screen above it on the original, and then on this one I've got like a full desk that I've built, big monitor suspended from above with four little side monitors on it to have a full five monitor setup with two different keyboards, the mouse, little calculator sitting here, and all of this is just in front of that hole in the wall because this is the new version of my secret door at the back where the monitor folded down before. Now, this entire thing is attached to this bracket here, which would just go up and out of the way into the currently very conspicuous wardrobe in the back alley. I'm going to add some other abandoned furniture out here to make this look less suspicious, but at the moment, it does look a bit random. And behind it, you can see I've just used some little ladder pieces here leading up to just a hole in the wall. So this would be a sort of secret entrance and exit for emergencies. I have still not finished the walls, however I have added the teleporter, and this is much better than the original one that was just two fences. I mean, look at what we got here. We've got little stairs leading up to this big octagonal structure, a little bit there for a minifigure to stand on, and of course, I've added in this little computer here. So we've got the monitor showing sort of space stuff. I think that's actually from the TARDIS LEGO Ideas set, which, I mean, that immediately makes this a million times better because Doctor Who, and then just a keyboard for, obviously, controlling it. It's kind of like Stargate, but smaller, I guess. I feel confident in saying that the main structure of the first floor is done. I haven't finished the inside yet. I haven't done any more since the teleporter, and I've still got to add more at the back. But the walls are done. I've even got this bit around where the next floor would attach on. So, yeah, I'm quite happy with how it's looking. Obviously, I've been updating the other one as well. So now I've just added in this little, like, lab bench near the door with, important bottles of stuff and some very important specimens like bacteria, leaves, an eye, whatever that is, a donut, some kind of gemstone, all very important for science. The first floor is now completely done. So, if we take a sort of a deep look at the interior, I'll explain everything that's going on in here, starting over by the door. I've already explained what's going on with this setup. I've also added a pile of just unopened letters on the floor under it, because that's funny to me. It feels like this place, it would be quite of a mess. It's supposed to be sort of a chaotic lab type of thing, so I feel like just unopened mail on the floor, yeah, that works well. And then over here we have some sort of metal cage with a robot being built inside it, and I've got a bracket on the neck of this to attach a tube to it to seem like this can here is like, I don't know, fueling it up or putting some sort of energy into it. So there's like the lid of the thing here and then the pipe going into it, and then like another sort of container of the same whatever magic juice this is. Moving on to this side with the teleporter, I've added a crash test dummy into the teleporter because I think that's funny. It kind of implies that perhaps this is the first run of the teleporter and it might not work. And there's also some sort of computer stuff going on the wall behind it now. I don't know, this is some sort of server or generator, or it doesn't really matter what it is, it's high-tech stuff. And because I had this panel here from the TARDIS console, I thought I'd add this other part from the TARDIS to the wall behind. I just sort of found that among all the options for PCs, and I thought, that's quite funny, because now there's two components from the TARDIS in it, and it kind of implies that maybe whoever built this teleporter has access to a TARDIS and tore it apart for scraps to make the teleporter, which I guess would imply that potentially this could go through time as well as space. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. Who's to say? Over in this corner, I added a gonk droid from Star Wars. I just think it's funny that there's just a random gonk droid just crammed in the corner, just scrapped. And there's also just a phone lying here because You know, why not? We all leave our phones lying in random places. Maybe it's balanced on the side of the teleporter. Moving on over to the desk, there's the computery stuff with keyboards and calculators and whatnot, like I added earlier. But I've also just added a random computer chip lying around and a pocket watch because you gotta keep an eye on the time. And there's also some sort of remote here. Maybe this relates to the screens. Maybe it's just a random TV remote that's been left lying. Who's to say? And the final side of the room, and also the most chaotic, is this bit over here, which is just sort of a workbench area where we've got some sort of button device thing going on here. I think this is like a seismograph or something that printed tile's meant to be. Just some random components of things from pop culture lying around, like the console from the DeLorean and Back to the Future, part of K9 from Doctor Who, the license plate from Ecto 1, and some other stuff in these drawers. Also, I have no idea what this gold talisman looking thing is, but it looked cool. It looked like a sort of artifact that might be getting examined or something. And then we got like a microwave over here with a Chinese food container sitting on top of it, random slice of pizza lying around, deck of cards just lying out, blueprint stuck on the wall, which also serves as an Ninjago reference. Random map that's probably important, but maybe not, just lying on the floor, because you just got to leave some important stuff just lying around sometimes and just forget about it. And then over here we have a sort of upgraded version of the weapon rack thing that I had in the original, which still has the utility belts in it, but I also just put some random minifigure accessories in it, like a mug, a cleaver, and a wand. And I've added these bits where studs can be clipped on, as well as putting things into the clips. So here we go, just a couple of superhero-y references. But yeah, that is the interior of the main floor done. I'm really happy with how it looks. It seems really sort of messy and chaotic, which is pretty much what I was going for. So I've started working on a frame for the second floor, since the first floor is now completely done. And I don't like how this looks. I feel like that's too thick for the grey, so I'm thinking I'm going to have to take away the bottom grey layer on this floor, because the top layer of that plus the two floor bits of this is already giving pretty much a full brick, actually exactly a full brick of grey, because it's 3 plates, which is the same thickness. So I think on this layer I'm just going to have to go straight into the sand blue. But I'm going to try that out, see how it looks, and maybe try a couple other things if it's not quite right. See, this is where my assembled version is coming in handy, because I can see how it looks as a full build, as well as each individual layer. And I'm thinking I might have to change slightly how the order of the bricks was in this, because here I've just gone straight from the floor into, what's that, 6 layers of bricks. But I think what I need to do here is invert the top of this. So after that layer here with the 3 lots of plates, maybe I could do that layer of bricks, then another layer of plates to add in that sort of thing that's going on at the top of here. I'm going to try that out. Only just now realised there's actually a mistake in this. I don't know how it's only on this one, not on the disassembled version. These bricks in this layer, where the sort of pillar bits are all grey. They should be light grey. I'm not quite sure about that. Right, I think I figured out a way where I kind of like how it looks. With I've changed the colours in this layer at the top bit of the first floor. And yeah, I think this will work. I just need to now change this to match that version. So of course, now that I've made changes over there and I've copied them to here, I need to have a look and see, does that work in the context of the interior as well? And honestly, I think it does. I think it actually looks better having a different colour at the top of the wall. So I think this is going to work quite nicely, and I'm going to use this sort of thing here with a layer of plates after the first layer of bricks to get started on the next floor and figure out how the rest of the walls are going to work. There's one thing that I've been toying with the idea of, and I'm still not entirely sure about it. I think I might make a decision after this floor. but I am considering splitting up the purposes of the third floor into two separate floors, which might be too much, but we'll see. Also, something I'm going to point out, which some of you might have noticed already and might be questioning, is why the floor in here isn't complete. There's one layer of it, and then the second layer of the floor is just around the outside. Well, you'll see why soon, and it involves flat tiles and jumper plates. I've counted the number of studs, and I've determined that this back wall is actually going to work perfectly for a plan which I was kind of considering, but still on the fence about. And now that I know that the dimensions for it would line up, I think I've got to do it. And that plan is going to involve quite a lot of snot bricks. I'm assuming that if anyone's actually watching this, they're familiar with snot bricks because they're probably also a fan of Lego. But just in case you're not familiar with snot bricks and think that I'm talking about the stuff that comes out your nose, a snot brick is a brick that has studs on the side because snot stands for studs not on top. It's really that simple. This is the sort of thing that the LEGO community does. Names things like snot bricks and cheese slopes. To be perfectly honest, I'm only like 50% sure what I'm attaching to these snot bricks, but I'm 100% sure that it'll be a lot easier to execute my plan for this wall if I can attach things to the wall. You know, honestly, I'm not quite sure why I'm being so cryptic about what I'm doing with this back wall, because that's literally the point of this video, right? I'm like talking you through my creative process. Basically, I was thinking about the Ninjago set that I designed and how Zane's suit was in that case at the back, and that made me think of the CW show Arrow, which is, funnily enough, part of the Arrowverse. And from there, I thought of the idea of, well, since this is like a superhero thing, and I have just, built a way to do that sort of case with, having a suit on the wall, I'm going to put some sort of wall in here with all the super suits in it. And I think I can get 5 of them in, which feels like a good number. So effectively this was my plan. I've taken out quite a lot of the snot bricks because I realised I went a bit overboard with them. So instead I've got some windows in here behind where each of the sort of super suits would go. And this is the main reason I wanted snot bricks on the wall, was to attach these to have a sort of divider between them without having to have like a full wall. So it splits it up without, taking up as much space, so I can fit the full 5 spaces in. Obviously I've just used some more like snot bricks here with these things on them to like curve in the sides of this like display cabinet thing. Got the jumper plates in place to put the minifigures on. I'm going to use these along here to attach something to be the top of it. I've not entirely figured that out yet, but this is the main sort of thing. And then obviously I'll have windows across the front, which I haven't put in yet because I need to get the figures in first. So I might change this slightly, I'm not quite sure, but basically I've attached some bricks with tiles on top of them to the snot bricks on the wall. It doesn't line up perfectly, but another layer wouldn't fit. So that'll have to do, I guess. I could literally just, like, put the actual top of it on this. Actually, that would probably be smarter. I don't know why I've decided to do it this way. I might adjust this just now. Alright, so here's my slight redesign of this monstrosity. I figured out that it's probably better to get rid of the top layer of snot bricks, so they're gone, and then I've added sort of a frame around here, similar to how I do the top layer of each floor of the building. So that way I'm going to make a little lid that goes on top of this that can easily be taken on and off to take the figures in and out of the display case. Alright, so I've just put the panels, sort of like glass pane bits on the front of here, and added in the minifigures. I did my best to design sort of 5 superhero suits. Obviously I had to do an Archer one because, well, I mentioned that I got this idea from Arrow, so I've got to do a loose reference to Arrow with it. Not direct, but, somewhere along those lines. The rest of them are just sort of put together from parts that I thought would look quite cool. Tried to do a range of colours for the different suits. Quite happy with how they turned out though. I think the way that they're standing in this like display case thing looks really cool. However, I do still need to add the top to it. And there we go, there's the lid for the top of the case. So this layer and this layer are all just joined together, just those top two bits. So that whole thing should lift off as one big chunk to open it up for taking the figures in and out. Plus, I've used some like minifigure base things and jumper plates on top, just so, maybe I can attach some stuff on top of this. I've left that open as a possibility. So now it's time to make a start on the other side of the room, which is the bit that I was talking about earlier when I said I've left the floor open because I'm going to need to use a lot of flat tiles and jumper plates. So basically, my plan for the rest of this room is pretty much to make it just like a casual hangout area, I guess. If this whole thing's meant to be for this team of superheroes, then, they need somewhere to chill when they're not superheroing. Immediately after I explained what my plan for this room was, it kind of changed. Because I was just going to have, like a couple of chairs and like a small table or whatever, and then it just turned into this long table that looks a bit more official than just sort of a casual hangout zone. So I guess this is sort of a dual purpose thing. I'm going to have a screen on the wall, so it can either be used as sort of an official like meeting sort of briefing area, or hanging out, I guess. You could just sit here and watch TV. I don't know. It serves multiple purposes now. Second floor is now done. So we've got the sort of meeting area here with the table, where they can either, be discussing important stuff or just be watching TV. Two different screens on the wall. I don't know why I put two screens on the wall. Doesn't really make sense. There's sort of a training area over here with like a dummy and then some targets on the wall. And then here, I've just added a bookcase. Sadly, it's not a bookcase door, it's just a bookcase. And then obviously around the table, we have each of the people who would be, in the suits. So obviously I've made their colours correlate to them. So this red one in the middle is the guy with the red t-shirt, and then the green one's this guy here. That silver suit over there, I thought it looked kind of like the most sort of menacing one, because it's the only one that like covers the full face, and it's all like sleek and metallic, and basically it just seemed like some sort of big intimidating thing. And I thought it'd be funny if we just do a bit of a juxtaposition with that. And then at the other side we've got the other two, obviously just corresponding to the purple and blue suits in the thing. There's not really any lore to this, I guess. I just threw these guys together quickly, just like going off of what kind of person I thought would be in each suit. And then also I realised I forgot to add a figure in the lab to be some sort of scientist or whatever, so here's the scientist for the lab. I've also added that to the first floor. So now that the first two floors are done, I've moved on to starting construction on the third floor. This one's going to be a difficult one, but I've got the floor in, and I've got the bit of the walls that I think is matching the last one. The back wall is going to be different, and the front wall is going to be very different. Because remember, on the original version, there was a big sort of sloped window at the front, and I want some sort of abnormal shaped window, but not like that. And I have a plan. Right, I was working on the front bit, which I'm still not entirely done with. And then I started thinking about the back, because the original had that big door at the back for the little spaceship thing to fly out of, and I still want to have that in here, but a better ship. And this is my rough idea. I'll show soon exactly how this is going to work. But basically I'm thinking of a big billboard on the back of the building that opens up to reveal the big entry and exit for the thing to fly in and out of. This can be very cool. Since the last clip, I have done a fair bit of work. Basically, this is the general shape of how the top floor is going to look. Got this kind of big window at the front. I was trying to do like a slope out and then slope back in again at the top, but I didn't like how it was looking and it didn't leave enough room for my other part of the plan. So yeah, we just got like sort of the mission control area here at the big window where there's, some screens, monitors, blah blah blah, buttons, and a chair, of course. This is where the jail cell bit will be. I don't... Jail cell is not the right word, is it? Holding cell. It's not a proper jail. It's just somewhere on site to, keep villains that need to be interrogated or whatever. And then over at the other side, there's a room. I don't entirely know what I'm doing with that yet. I still need to get the back wall in and the walls that divide these. But I kind of figured out how my billboard idea is going to work. So I got these bits here connected to this. So basically on that hinge, this would fold up and then slide in. And over here, you can see how it would look when it's in. I've not fully finished this off yet. I just wanted to show it a bit while it's still kind of open. So you can see. So basically, as you can see, this bit in here is lower than this plate and plates at this side. So this here slides back and forth on these rails. There'll be bricks in this gap here and then sort of around that. So basically these can only slide back and forth in this sort of almost like a rail section built out of bricks. This will be as far back as they can go, so this is still always one stud hanging out, so you can pull it back out again easy enough. And yes, it just folds up and slides in. You can see there sort of the gaps where those will go in. It's not the most sleek mechanism. Maybe I would have been better using Technic components. I'm going to be honest, that thought didn't even cross my mind until right this second as I'm saying it. But I'm happy enough with how this works. There's probably a way that I could have, fit something else in this space. Because, like, this entire bit here, this bit round here, this section, and all of this is all just going to be solid bricks. And that's, there is probably space I could have fit something in there, but I've already over-designed this section. I can't be bothered over-designing it even more. So this is basically the thing. You can see now what I meant by the number of bricks. That, yeah, there could definitely be something more creative put into this space. But I don't know. It works, technically. So it's good enough for me. Also, from this angle, it does look like these only are sort of boxed in up till this point, but it is important to remember there is still... The bottom part of them does still have this bit that it can't get out of. So once there's something across the top of all of this, that will definitely be properly held in place. Yeah, see here on the other position, you can see that these are still fixed in place. And once there's something over the top of that, I think that should be enough force that the bricks pressing down on top of these should be enough to hold them in place. If there was nothing on top of that, and it was just sitting like this, obviously the weight of this big panel is going to pull these off. But with these being pressed down in place, sort of fixed into like a rail position, I think that would hold in place. Well, here's my next problem. This is as far out as that can go while still being attached across and across. Even then, that's... Oh no, actually, that kind of works perfectly. Yeah, because that pushes down on this to keep this from falling out. And this will be sitting on top of that, or on top of this once it's in its full, correct, stored away position. Which means this won't fall, and this won't fall off. That's physics for you. Everything has an equal and opposite reaction. This pushes down, this pushes up. Isaac Newton would be proud. The dimensions of these actually work out so perfectly. The fact that that area is completely covered and it's all on correctly. I'm trying to decide if I should put another layer on top of this to hold that in place, because this does seem like it wouldn't be connected very well in the middle. However, that would make it even taller, and this bit here is already looking quite thick. These bricks need to be a different colour. I can't decide what colour yet, though. You know what? It actually looks alright in light grey. I think I'm just gonna... Yeah, I'm just gonna do that layer in that. Okay, so I've identified one flaw with my secret billboard door, which is this very obvious gap here. So now I have an important decision to make. Do I just roll with the big obvious opening, or do I put another thing that folds down from here to cover the gap? You know what? The gap will just have to do. So now we have not quite a finished, but, somewhat complete roof. I think I'll do another layer on top of this with flat tiles. I'm not quite sure. But this is the main, functional elements of it completely done. You can see here it's stored away, and obviously we've got the one that's down over here. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. So now I can shift my attention back to the top floor. So the holding cell's done. Basically, we've got a sign here, obviously. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to put on the wall here yet, but I've left the brick so I can do something with it. We've got this panel with the warning signs, I guess, and then the thing for controlling the cell. Moving inside, we have a very crappy bed and a metal toilet. Basically, everything you need. Nice and simple. And now I have finished this other room as well. There's a sign here, kind of, like on the other side, except I don't actually have a sign printed for this one. There wasn't a piece that would show exactly what it's meant to be, so I just left it blank. And basically this room is like a little medical bay. I wasn't sure what to put in here, and this seemed like it would do. So on the wall, we've got the sink, some sort of medical thing, a little space to put something in, a phone, x-ray, and a syringe. And then we've got the bed over here. I've used that element to sort of indent the wall a bit so there's more space. And I don't know what that's doing here. Something could be attached to that. But yeah, just little medical bay in case, people are injured and need to go to the medical bay. I don't know. So now that I've done the holding cell and the medical bay, it's time to use this middle space. So after adding, a little bit of a area for the thing to land in and modifying this bit to leave slightly more space, I went ahead and just assembled the actual vehicle itself. This took a lot of trial and error. I spent a lot of time on this. It makes no sense whatsoever, but I really like it. I think it's quite a sleek design, it's got a big sort of door at the back that opens up, and then this window part has a hinge to open up as well. I did have to make this opening taller to fit it in, but I think it looks really cool. I do like it. Got like a little seat inside with some controls and whatnot. And I've decided to name this little vehicle the Bee, because by all known laws of aviation, it should not be able to fly. So if we just bring that down to here, you can see that it does just barely fit under this bit here, so it can slide in and out of that little garage bit at the back. I think this is a huge improvement over what was in the original, and it's a great addition to the build. I'm not entirely sure how feasible this is, but I just had so much fun building this little vehicle. Then I kind of want to do another similar sort of thing, but bigger. So I'm thinking about having another floor, except it's kind of like false, so there'll be walls at the sides and stuff, but then it can kind of fold away, and like the main section of the top floor would like come off into like another vehicle, if that makes sense. And here is that top floor. I did exactly as I said. So it's not perfect because there is obviously like a gap around it, but it's supposed to look like this is just sort of a window similar to this one coming out the front of the building. And then this whole section here and this section here open up. As you can see over here, where it's in a partially opened position, to actually get the thing in and out, they would have to open further than this, but just, I thought something like this demonstrates better how it opens. And then above it, we have the actual ship that would be inside it. It's not quite as sleek as the other one. See, there's an important decision you have to come to when building vehicles out of Lego, which is sort of the shape versus space problem. So for any given size of vehicle, you can either get the shape really good and not have much space inside, or give slight sacrifice to the shape in order to have more space on the inside of it. And I wanted this one to feel a lot bigger, like an actual full room, so it could operate as almost like a mobile command center, you know? Like it's got space for all 5 of the heroes that are in that thing there. And it's just got all these like computers and stuff in the back. You can see we've got some sort of buttons and things here with screens above them, same on the other side, and then just a bunch of other tech looking stuff along the back. Like I said, it's not as good as the other ship, but I'm still happy enough with it. It's got these like, I've did like really oversized kind of engines at the side, so I guess technically this one would be more functional than the other since it does have some sort of mechanism to it. And on the back it's got these big sort of purple energy engine boost thing. I don't know what it is. It's supposed to be some sort of propulsion that uses some sort of high-tech futuristic power. So now that this top floor is done, I think I've just got to do a couple of finishing touches, and then this build will be done. So basically, I've just added this little satellite array antenna thing to the roof, because it looks a bit flat, and, you know, it makes sense that that would be there. And then added a couple figures to this bit. So we now have a villain in the holding cell, and a commander for the whole operation. Now, I don't know why, but there's something really funny to me about the idea that they're not entirely sure if the person giving them orders is human or not. So they look kind of either robotic or like they're in some sort of suit that's keeping them alive, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they're a robot, maybe they're a human, maybe they're even an alien, maybe there's some other fourth thing, who knows. But that's just really funny to me that that's a mystery. So overall, I think it's safe to say this final project is done, and overall, I'm really happy with it. It's a massive step up from what I started with, and I think it looks really cool. Do I think this is something LEGO would ever do? No, absolutely not. It's basically got 17 figures with it, which actually, you know what, a build this size should have 17 figures, but I don't think LEGO would do that many with a build this size. But, you know what, it doesn't matter if they would or not, because I've done it, and I think that this is fun. So all in all, I think across the 3 projects, this has been a huge success. I've had a lot of fun doing this, and I think I'd probably do more of this in the future. Maybe I'll just continue designing sets for my own enjoyment. Maybe there'll be another video on it in the future. Who's to say? Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and stay tuned for future videos. And I will see you in the next one.